Chapter 19, Economic Growth and Development. Economic growth is an indicator of wealth reflecting the quantity of resources available to a society, but it provides no information about the allocation of these resources. Economic development is a normative concept. It applies in the context of people's sense of morality. Economic growth. Economic growth can be defined as an increase in the level of output of goods and services that is sustained over a long period of time, measured in terms of value added. Economic growth is related to a quantitative sustained increase in the country's per capita output or income accompanied by expansion in its labor force, consumption, capital, and volume of trade. According to Professor Arthur Lewis, economic growth means the growth of output per head of population. Balanced and unbalanced growth in an economy. Balanced growth. A balanced economy suggests that common growth is sustainable in the long term and the economy is also growing across different sectors and is not focused on one particular industry or area. Important characteristics of balanced growth. Growth is evenly distributed across income spectrum and across different geographical regions. The concept of economic growth finds its roots in the theories of aggregate demand and aggregate supply. This approach involves establishing coordination between the various policies of the government so that a planned growth rate can be achieved. Essential conditions of balanced growth: state intervention, formulation of plans and their implementation, public cooperation. Benefits of public growth: promotes research, balanced regional development is possible, labor division is possible. Limitations of balanced growth: abuse of resources, problem of inadequate capital, emphasis on establishment of industry but lacks focus on controlling cost, unbalanced growth. According to this approach, investment should be made in selected sectors rather than simultaneous investment in all sectors of the economy. Investment in one sector would generate external economies, and these economies can be used by other sectors and generate external economies, and these economies will be used by some other sectors of the economy. In this way, economy gradually moves from the path of unbalanced growth to that of balanced growth. Economists such as H.W. Singer, C.P. Kindleberger, Paul Staten, W.W. Rostow have expressed their views in favor of it. However, it is Professor Hirschman who has propounded the strategy of unbalanced growth in systematic manner. Principle, Principles of economic growth, Herod and Domer model. Two economists, R.F.H. and R.F. Herod and E.D. Domer, have developed the models of growth, each working independently of the other. Herod published his theory earlier than Domer. Herod's book Towards a Dynamic Economics was published in 1948, while Domer's book Essays in the Theory of Economic Growth was published New York in 1957. The Herod model, H.M. R. F. Herod attempts to show in his model how steady equilibrium growth may occur in an economy. Once the steady growth is distorted and the economy fall into disequilibrium, cumulative forces tend to perpetuate this divergence, thereby leading to their secular deflator or secular inflation. The Herod model is based on some growth rates. There is the actual growth rate denoted by G. It is determined by the saving ratio and the capital output. There is the natural growth rate denoted by Gn. This is regarded as the welfare optimum. It may also called the potential for the full employment rate of growth. It is the maximum growth rate which an economy can achieve with its available natural resources. Critique of the Herod model. The instability in the Herod's model is due to the rigidity of its basic assumptions with fixed production function, a fixed saving ratio, and a fixed growth rate of labor force. Economists have attempted to relieve this rigidity by permitting capital and labor substitution in the production function by making the saving ratio a function of the profit rate and the growth rate of labor force as a variable in the growth process. The Domer model, DM. The basic question around which E.D. Domer established his model can be stated as follows. According to Domer, growth in capacity output will be realized only if aggregate demand or income of the people increases by a sufficient amount. Domer has based his analysis of demand or income effect of investment of Keynesian theory of multiplier and income determination. According to this, increase in aggregate demand or income is given by increase in investment delta I and the size of multiplier. Thus, according to income effect of investment, delta Y equal to I by S into delta I, where I by S represent the size of multiplier and S is marginal propensity to save. The growth in income delta Y must be large enough to generate demand equal to capacity growth in output. It is greatly helpful to express the above growth equation in terms of rates of growth of income and capital. It will be represented as follows. Delta y by y equal to delta k by y into delta y by delta k. Here delta y by y equal to rate of growth of income gy, delta k equal to delta I equal to change in investment. The above equation can be rewritten as gy equal to I by y into delta y by delta k. If it is assumed that output capital ratio is constant, then the above equation will take the following form. Gy equal to I by y into sigma, where I by y equal to rate of investment as ratio to national income. Sigma equal to output capital ratio. Also, according to this model, to maintain full employment equilibrium growth of output, the following condition must hold true. I by S into delta I equal to I sigma. Assumptions of the Domer model. Income is determined by investment through multiplier. For the sake of simplicity, saving income ratio is assumed constant. Productive capacity is created by investment according to the potential social average investment productivity. For the sake of simplicity, this is also assumed to be constant. Investment is induced by output growth together with entrepreneur confidence. Employment depends upon the utilization ratio expressed as the ratio between actual output and productive capacity. Past and present investment can have greater productive capacity at a given ratio. Solo's model. Solo model is one of the basic neoclassical model. Professor R. M. Solo concluded his model as when production takes place under the usual neoclassical conditions of variable proportions and constant returns to scale, no simple opposition between natural and warranted rate of growth is possible. There may not be any knife edge. The system can adjust to any given rate of growth of the labor force and eventually approach a state of steady proportional expansion. Delta k by k equal to delta L by L equal to delta y by y. To start, we consider the aggregate production function y equal to f kl. Since we have assumed that there are constant returns to scale, this means that if k and l increases by a proportion lambda, y increases by the same proportion, the function f is homogeneous of degree 1. Y equal to f lambda k comma lambda l for all lambda greater than 1. For simplicity, let lambda equal to 1 by L. Then y by L equal to f k by L comma L by L or y by L equal to f k by L comma 1. Let denote quantities divided by L by lower case letters. So y equal to f k comma 1 or y equal to f k. This gives output per person as a function of capital labor ratio. In several cases, income is used synonymously with output, denoting output by Q and output labor ratio by Q. We have Q equal to Fk. We can show it in a diagram as follows. OK, capital output ratio or QG dFk. A ray OD to any point D, the curve has a slope that gives the ratio of output to capital. This is because of this ray is equal to Q by L by K by L equal to Q by K. This is the inverse of capital output ratio V. Each point on the production function in the Solo model is that in Herod-Doman model, one is not fixed or exogenous. Defined points on the production function show different capital output ratios. Assumptions of the Solo model. The economy is producing one composite commodity which can either be consumed or accumulated as a stock of capital. Supply of labor is homogeneous. There is stock of capital which has been accumulated from the past. The production exhibits constant returns to scale. This means that if labor and capital are increased by a certain proportion, say lambda, output increases by the same proportion lambda. The labor force grows exogenously given growth rate GL equal to N. Thus, labor force at time T is equal to LT equal to L0 E and T. People have a constant proportion of income. If S denotes saving, then S equal to SY. The government does not intervene in the economy. There are no taxes or government purchases. There is an absence of foreign trade. John Robinson's model. Mrs. John Robinson in 1956 provided a major approach to growth theory in her classical book, The Accumulation of Capital. The main contribution of Mrs. Robinson to post Keynesian growth economics lies in her successful bid to integrate the classical value and distribution theory with Keynes' saving investment theory into a synthesized, coherent system. The net national income in the Robinson's model is conceived of as being composed of the total wage bill and the total profits. As such, the distribution of the income of the economy among the entrepreneurs and the wage earners can be represented by the following relation: Py equal to Wn plus pi pk1, where y equal to net national product, n equal to number of employed workers, pi equal to gross profit rate with interest rate, k equal to amount of capital stock, p equal to average price of output being used to produce the output, y, w equal to money wage rate in the economy. For equation 1, we get pi pk equal to py minus wn, pi equal to p minus w oblique p oblique q 2, or where p equal to y oblique n, the labor productivity, and q equal to ky n, the capital labor relation. Equation 2 indicates that the profit rate is a function of the labor productivity p, real wage rate w oblique p, and the capital labor relation q. For maximization of profits, the entrepreneurs must operate on these variables in conformity with equation 2. The profit rate can be increased with increase in labor productivity, decrease in the real wage rates, and the capital labor relation. Now the expenditure side of the economy is represented by the familiar Keynesian identity with y equal to c plus 1 3, s equal to I 4, and where c, s, and I is consumption, saving, and investment respectively. According to Mrs. John Robinson, in an economy, saving are only done by entrepreneurs, and these are plugged back in business in the form of investment. As such, we can write the equation for the following form: s equal to sigma s equal to pi k equal to I. Instead of I, we can substitute delta k, which is the increase in real capital. Delta k equal to pi k, or pi equal to delta k oblique k. For getting equilibrium, we simply have to juxtapose the income and expenditure sides. The equilibrium conditions are pi equal to p minus w oblique p oblique q equal to delta k by k. This equilibrium condition manifests a double-sided relationship between the rate of profit and rate of accumulation. On the one hand, it tells us that the rate of accumulation going on in a particular situation determines the level of profits obtainable therefrom. It determines the rate of profits which the entrepreneurs would expect on their investment. On the other hand, the equilibrium condition shows that the rate of profit itself governs the rate of accumulation. Everything that determines the rate of profit would also determine the rate of growth of capital. Assumptions of John Robinson's model. The economy is assumed to be closed one. There is no foreign trade. Such an economy reflects the conditions of a competitive laissez-faire capitalism. There are only two factors of production, which capital and labor. The technical horizon is assumed to be given and constant. The technical coefficient of production are fixed. Labor is an abundance, and entrepreneurs employs as much labor as they wish. The entire national product is distributed between the entrepreneurs and the workers. Entrepreneur constitutes the only saving investing class in the economy, and workers consume whatever they earn. Price level is assumed to be constant. Golden age. An increase in labor supply without a proportionate increase in capital supply would cause unemployment in the economy. To maintain full employment of labor resources, it is essential, according to the Robinson's model of growth, that the growth or rate of population labor supply should be equal to the growth rate of capital delta n by n equal to delta k by k. If it is so, then there will be full employment of both labor and capital in the economy, and Mrs. John Robinson calls this the golden age. Kaldor's model. Professor Kaldor, in his book A Model of Economic Growth, follows the Herodian dynamic approach and the Keynesian techniques of analysis, the other classical models that treat the technical progress as completely exogenous, but Kaldor attempts to provide a framework of relating the genesis genesis of technical progress to capital accumulation. The model function under two stages are constant working population. For the functioning of model, Kaldor suggests three functions. Saving function st equal to alpha pt plus beta yt minus pt, and 1 greater than alpha greater than beta greater than equal to 0, where PT is profit in time period T, ST is saving in time period T, YT is income in period T. Alpha and beta are MPS S of profit and wage earning class in such a way that 1 greater than alpha greater than beta greater than equal to 0. Investment function KT equal to alpha YT minus 1 plus beta comma P minus 1 oblique KT minus 1 YT minus 1, and IT equal to KT plus 1 minus KT, where KT is stock of capital in time period, or PT minus 1 oblique K T minus 1 is the rate of profit on capital. Technical progress function YT plus 1 minus YT oblique YT equal to alpha double apostrophe plus beta double apostrophe IT equal no, oblique KT, where yt plus 1 minus yt oblique yt is the rate of growth of income. It oblique kt is the rate of net investment, giving these three functions or the rate of growth of income. It oblique kt is the rate of growth economy with constant population can be shown with the help of following diagram in panel B, where proportionate growth of capital KT plus 1 minus KT oblique KT is measured horizontally, and the proportionate growth of income YT plus 1 minus YT or oblique YT vertically. Point G as determined by the technical progress function TT, and the 45-degree line, one of the steady growth points where proportionate growth of income equals proportionate growth of capital C oblique O is less, so investment will increase in the subsequent period so as to make capital equal to G at A. Proportionate growth of capital panel B, or proportionate growth of income TT 45-degree line G1 G2 G3 G4 A B G A1 A2 A3 A4. This will in turn raise the growth of output in period T2 to G2. The rate of investment will increase further to A3 in period T3 so as to make A3 equal to G2 at point B. Expanding population. Kaldor left the assumptions of constant working of population and studies the relation between growth in population and growth in income, which is expressed algebraically as under IT equal to GT greater than lambda, and IT equal to lambda, where T is percentage rate of growth of population, GT is the percentage rate of growth of income, and lambda is the maximum rate of population growth. If GT less than lambda and so is IT greater than lambda, the rates of growth of income and population will continue to rise till the growth rate of population equals lambda. Assumptions of Kaldor's model. It is based on the Keynesian full employment assumption. Income consists of wages and profits. Total saving consists of savings out of wages and savings out of profits. Profits in the economy are a function of investment. Prices are assumed to be constant. The choice of techniques is also assumed to alter with the accumulation of capital, and the progress of techniques is the capital grade making in industries. Technical progress depends on the rate of capital accumulation. For this, Calder assumes the technical progress function with a composite product of two tendencies, growth of capital and growth of productivity. Neoclassical theory of economy is growth. The neoclassical growth theory was developed in the late 1950s and 1960s of the 20th century as a result of intensive research in the field of growth economics. This theory lays stress on capital accumulation is related decision of saving as an important determinant of economic growth. Neoclassical growth model considers two factors production function with capital and labor as determinants of output. In this theory, savings have been considered to be dependent on national income. H equal to HY, where H equal to saving, Y equal to national income, H equal to saving trend or MPS. In this theory, it has been recognized to be similar to the average saving trend and marginal saving trend. Therefore, in this theory, increase in capital accumulation delta K and investment I is written as follows. Delta K equal to I plus HY. The production function used in this principle is written as y plus AF k less than L, where A equal to level of technology, K equal to level of capital, L equal to level of labor. Assuming technology is stable, then y equal to F k comma L, where y equal to national income, K equal to capital level, and L equal to labor level. Equation 1 is divided by L, then y by L equal to F k by L comma L by L equal to F k by L. So y by L equal to F k by L. If y by L equal to y and k by L equal to k, then y equal to F k. Per capita income depends on per capita capital. Hindu growth rate. Professor Raj Krishna, and an Indian economist, coined the term Hindu rate of growth in 1978 to characterize the slow growth of Indian economy and to explain it against the backdrop of socialistic economic policies. The Hindu rate of growth is a term referring to the low annual growth rate of the planned economy of India before the liberalization of 1991, which stagnated around 3.5% from 1950s to 1980s, while per capita income growth averaged 1.3%. Economic development. According to Michael Todaro, economic development is an increase in living standards, improvement in self esteem needs, and freedom for operation as well as a greater choice. It is referred to as the quantitative and qualitative changes in economy, such as development of human capital, critical infrastructure, regional competitiveness, environmental sustainability, social inclusion, health, safety, literacy, etc. Till 1960s, economic development was often used as a synonym of economic growth. It is no longer viewed in identical with economic growth. It is now taken to mean economic growth plus change. The term change refers to the qualitative changes in the economy. These changes are in the form of improvement in the level of living, reduction in inequality, rise in efficiency, improvement in techniques, positive changes in attitudes, and so on. Difference between economic development and economic growth basis economic development economic growth concept broader and normative concept narrower concept than economic development scope concerned with structural changes in the economy qualitative growth is concerned with increases in the economy's output qualitative growth development relates to growth of human capital index, a decrease in inequality figures, and structural changes that improve the general population's quality of life. Growth relates to gradual increase in one of the components of gross domestic product GDP, such as consumption, government spending, investment, net exports, etc. Implication: it implies changes in income, saving, and investment, along with progressive changes in socio-economic structure of country, institutional and technological changes. It refers to an increase in the real output of goods and services in the country, like increase in income, savings, investment, etc. Measurement: qualitative human development index HDI, gender related index GRI, human poverty index HPI, human poverty index HPI, infant mortality, literacy rate, etc. Quantitative increase in real GDP shown by PPP effect brings qualitative and quantitative changes in the economy. Brings quantitative changes in the economy. Measurement of economic development, gross national product. Some economists have accepted the increase in GNP gross national product shows economic development. According to them, economic development is measured an increase in the real national income of an economy in long term period. Economic development rate equal to GDP 2 by minus GDP 1 by GDP 1, where GDP 2 equal to growth development product of current year, GDP 1 equal to growth development product of last year. For this concept, statement of Professor Mayer and Baldwin is suitable. Economic development is a process through which increase in real national income of an economy occurs in long run. Per capita income, second major tool of measuring level of economic development, relates with per capita person income. According to the Buchanan and Alice, development refers to increase in possibilities of rise in real per capita income through increase in production sources by use of capital investments in underdeveloped areas of a country. Economic welfare. Economic development is also presented with respect to nature of economic welfare in the societies. According to this concept, economic development is the process through which real per capita income increases with the decrease in income differences in the societies and also satisfies more needs of general public. Social and basic requirement indicator. Since 1970s, due to unsatisfactory indicator of per capita income for economic development, economic thinkers started to focus on increasing the quality of development process. With this point of view, thinkers aimed at increasing employment, reducing the poverty level, and reducing the income differences as these basic needs for doing economic development. The main objective of this concept is to provide at least basic needs: education, health, food, clothes, houses, water, and everyone. Indicators of economic development. Physical Quality of Life Index (PQLI). PQLI was the first attempt towards providing comprehensive measures of economic development. It was developed by Maurice David Morris in the mid 1970s. PQLI is the average of three values: life expectancy, basic literacy, basic literacy rate, and infant mortality rate. Each values was scaled on 1 to 100, where 1 represents the worst and 100 represents the best. The PQLI measure keeps in view the welfare consideration, and it attaches the fruits of economic growth with human betterment. In such index of suffering, 10 following indicators have been included: income, inflation, chances of new jobs, pressure of population in urban areas, the infant mortality rates, nutritional level, clean water, use of energy, adult education, and personal freedom. Limitations of PQLI. The majority of indicators are inputs and not outputs, such as education, health, etc. Social indicators are concerned with current welfare and are not related to the future. It is complement to GNP and not a replacement. It also does not work to measure economic growth. It also does not measure the welfare. Human Development Index (HDI). The United Nations Development Programme (UNDP) introduced the HDI in its first Human Development Report (HDR) report, prepared under the stewardship of Mehboob Haq in 1990. Life Expectancy Index (LEI), Educational Attainment Index (EAI), and Standard of Living Index (SLI) are the indicators of HDI. Life Expectancy Index (LEI) refers to life expectancy at birth, not at age 1, because infant mortality is not considered in this index as a separate indicator. Educational Attainment Index (EAI) is a combination of adult literacy rate and combined enrollment ratio. The weight assigned to adult literacy rate (ALR) is two-thirds, while that for combined enrollment ratio (CER) is one-third. Standard of Living Index (SLI) is represented here by the concept of purchasing power parity (PPP). Limitations of Human Development Index (HDI) reflect long-term changes and may not respond to recent short-term changes. Higher national wealth does not indicate welfare. GNI may not necessarily increase economic welfare. It depends on how it is spent. Also, higher GNI per capita may hide widespread inequality within a country. Some countries with higher real GNI per capita have high levels of inequality. HDI can highlight countries with similar GNI per capita but defined levels of economic development, wide divergence within countries. Human Sustainable Development Index (HSDI). It was developed in 2010 by independent economists. HSDI attempts to measure the overall quality of life by factoring in a fourth parameter, per capita carbon emissions, to the existing HDI. According to HSDI, the top five countries are Norway, New Zealand, Sweden, Switzerland, and France. Sustainable development. The term sustainable development is defined as the development to achieve the needs of present generation without compromising future generation needs. When the World Commission on Environment and Development, Brundtland Commission, published its reports in 1987, it presented sustainable development as a new concept. Then the concept became very famous. Sustainable development ensures the well-being of individuals by integrating social in development, economic development, and environmental conservation and protection. The United Nations Conference on Environment and Development, held in Johannesburg. Johannesburg Summit 2002 focused on the need to remove the barrier to sustainable development in modern societies. Challenges of sustainable development are population, poverty, inequality, the shortage of drinking water, human health, consumption of energy, deforestation, and petrol consumption. Sustainable Development Goals. The United Nations General Assembly (UNGA) formally adopted the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development on 26 September 2015, along with a set of bold new global goals. The 193 members GA adopted the new framework Transforming Our World, the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development, composed of 17 goals and 169 targets to wipe out poverty, fight inequality, and tackle climate change over the next 15 years. These 17 goals are as follows: end poverty in all its forms everywhere, end hunger, achieve food security and improved nutrition, and promote sustainable agriculture, ensure healthy lives and promote well-being for all ages, ensure inclusive and equitable quality education and promote lifelong learning opportunities at all, achieve gender equality and empower all women and girls, ensure availability and sustainable management of water and sanitation for all, ensure access to affordable, reliable, sustainable, and modern energy for all, promote sustainable, inclusive, and sustainable economic growth, full and productive employment, and decent work for all, build resilient infrastructure, promote inclusive and sustainable industrialization, and foster innovation. Reduce inequality within among countries, make cities and human settlement inclusive, safe, resilient, and sustainable, ensure sustainable consumption and production patterns, take urgent action to combat climate change and its impacts, conserve and sustainably use the ocean, seas, and marine resources for sustainable development, protect, restore, and promote sustainable use of territorial ecosystems, sustainably manage forests, combat desertification and halt and reverse land degradation, and halt biodiversity loss, promote peaceful and inclusive societies for sustainable development, provide access to justice for all and build effective, accountable, and inclusive institutions at all, strengthen the means of implementation, and revitalize the global partnership for sustainable development. Economic development and income distribution. There are two principal concepts of income distribution encountered in the literature, which the functional and the personal or size distribution of income. The functional distribution shows how much income is received by each factor of production. On the other hand, the size distribution of income shows how many individuals or households receive how much income. This is how total income from all sources is distributed among individuals or household. Economists have been widely concerned with the effects of economic growth on income distribution and vice versa. There are two main hypotheses in the literature on how economic growth affects income distribution. The first hypothesis is the Kuznets' famous inverse U curve relating level of per capita income to income distribution. In his 1955 presidential address to the American Economic Association, Kuznets proposed that the relationship between the level of per capita income and inequality in the distribution of income may take the form of an inverted U. As per capita income rises, inequality may initially reach a maximum at an intermediate level of income and then decline as income level developed countries is reached. The second hypothesis on how economic growth affects income distribution is that economic growth always leads to increased inequality in income distribution. It has a well known origin that go back to classical economists. According to this hypothesis, growth in market economies cannot take place without a worsening of the income distribution rate. 1998 is to 284 to 92. These are three main explanations recently discussed. First, wealth and other income generating assets are historically unevenly distributed, and only the rich can save and invest, meaning that growth goes always to the initially rich. A second argument is related to the composition of labor or broadly of human capital. Technological progress is inherently biased in favor of skilled and educated labor, whose marginal product always rises more than the unskilled labor. Rises of inequality with development. Globalization is uneven, rewarding the already rich, leaving the poor behind. Is increasing growing inequality. There are three reasons for this. First, the economic benefits generated by efficient global markets are not shared equally. Second, global markets are incomplete, and many developing countries do not have mechanisms for people in insurance against market failures. Thirdly, trade migration and intellectual property rights at the global level naturally reflect the greater market power of the rich. If underdeveloped countries emphasize only on economic growth, then even if country is capable to achieve high rate of growth, its benefit is derived by small section of its population. This increase in inequality of income in the developed countries leading to political and social problems. So, underdeveloped countries have to concentrate on economic development and not just economic growth. In case of developed economies, since all the people have level of capabilities, benefits of economic growth is distributed among all the people fairly and equally. That's why in case of developed nations, high level of economic growth leads to decreased inequality of income, which is not the case with underdeveloped countries. Theories related to economic growth and income distribution. The Kuznets curve and inequality. The Kuznets curve was established by the American economist Simon Kuznets, and it dates from the 1950s. It suggests that in pre-industrial societies, almost everybody is equally poor, so inequality is low. Inequality then rises as people move from low productivity agriculture to the more productive industrial sector, where average income is higher and wages are less uniform. As a society develops and becomes richer, the urban rural gap is reduced, and old age pension, unemployment benefits, and other components of a social safety net have and the effect of lowering inequality. According to the Kuznets inverted U hypothesis, as per capita national income of a country increase in the initial stages of growth, inequality in income distribution rises, and after reaching the highest degree in the intermediate level, income inequality falls. This is shown in figure, whereas a country develops and its per capita income rises. The degree of income inequality initially rises, and after reaching the maximum level it falls as GDP per capita increases further. OX হচ্ছে কি ডোমেস্টিক প্রোডাক্ট পার ক্যাপিটা, ওয়াই হচ্ছে কুজনেটস রেশিও। সিমন কুজনেটস put forward the hypothesis that relationship between per capita national income and the degree of inequality in income distribution may be of the form of inverted U. In his 1955 study, they calculated the Kuznets ratios and found that the developing countries tend to have a higher degree of inequality, whereas the rich developed countries tend to have a lower degree of inequality. Vicious cycle of poverty. The theory of vicious cycle of poverty propounded by Marx, which has significance in the theory that the state is poor because he is poor. There are cyclical relationships in the vicious circle of poverty that tend to perpetuate the low level of development in LDCs. Marx stated that it implies a circular constellation of forces tending to act and react upon one another in such a way as to keep a poor country in a state of poverty. A poor man may not have enough to eat, being underfed. His health may be weak, being physically weak. His working capacity is low, which means that he is poor, which in turn means that he will not have enough to eat, and so on. The total productivity in LDC is low, basically due to deficiency of capital market imperfections, economical backwardness, and underdevelopment. However, the vicious cycles operate both on the supply side and the demand side. The demand side of the vicious circle is that the low level of real income to a low level of demand, which in turn leads to a low rate of investment and hence lack of deficiency of capital, low productivity by and low income shown by figure. A vicious circle: low productivity, low income, low demand, low investment, capital deficiency. Low productivity is reflected in low real income. The level of real income means low savings. The low level of saving lead to low investment and hence to deficiency of capital. The deficiency of capital in turn lead to a low level of productivity and back to low income. Thus, the vicious circle is complete from the supply side. The low level of real income reflecting low investment and capital deficiency is a common feature of both the vicious cycles. A third vicious cycle encompasses underdeveloped human and natural resources. The development of natural resources depend on the productive capacity of people in the country. If the people are backward and illiterate, lack in technical skills, knowledge, and entrepreneurial activity, the neutral natural resources will tend to remain unutilized or even misutilized. On the other hand, people are economically backward in a country due to underdeveloped natural resources, therefore both a consequence and cause of the backward people. Theories of economic development. Adam Smith's theory. Adam Smith is known as father of economics. Adam Smith is regarded as the foremost classical economist. His book, An Inquiry into the Nature and Cause of Wealth of Nations, published in 1776, was primarily concerned with the problem of economics of development. Smith posted a supply side driven model of growth. Succinctly, we can set out the story via the simplest of production functions: y equal to f l k t. Y is output, L is labor, K is capital, and T is land. So output is related to labor and capital and land inputs. He is a supporter of laissez-faire. Smith proposed that population growth was endogenous in the traditional manner of the time. It depends on the sustenance available to the accommodate the increasing workforce. Investment was also endogenous, determined by the rate of saving, mostly by capitalists. Land growth was dependent on conquest of new lands, example colonization, or technological improvement of fertility of old lands. Technological progress could also increase overall growth. Smith's famous thesis that the division of labor of specialization improves growth was a fundamental argument. Smith also saw improvement in machinery and international trade as engines of growth as they facilitated further specialization. He also assumed the existence of perfect competition. Ricardian theory. Ricardo presented his view on economic development in an unsystematic manner. In his book, The Principle of Political Economy and Taxation, like Smith, Ricardo never propounded any theory of development. He simply discussed the theory of distribution. However, Smith's model of growth remained the predominant model of classical growth. David Ricardo, 1817, modified it by including diminishing returns to land. The Ricardian model is based on the interrelation of trade groups in the economy. They are landlords, capitalists, and laborers, among whom the entire produce of land is distributed. According to Ricardo, capital accumulation is the outcome of profit because profit leads to saving of wealth, which is used for capital formation. The rate of profit is equal to the ratio of profit to capital employed. The wage rate increases when the prices of commodities forming the subsistence of the workers increase. The profits of the farmers regulate the profits of all other traders. Criticism of Ricardian theory. Ricardo pointed out that improved technology in industrial field leads to the displacement of labor and other adverse consequences. The Ricardian view that wage rate cannot rise above the subsistence level is wrong. The Ricardian model is not a growth theory but a theory of distribution which determines the share of workers, landlords, and capitalists. Ricardo believes that only one product, which is corn, is produced on land. But this is an old notion because land products a variety of products other than corn. The Ricardian assumption that capital and labor are fixed coefficient of production is not correct. Marxian theory. In this respect, Marx contributed to the theory of economic development first in a broad way of providing an economic entrepreneurs of history, second in the narrower aspect of specifying the motivating forces of capitalist development, and third in respect of suggesting an alternative path of planned economic development. Under capitalism, Marx uses his theory of surplus value, the economic basis of the class struggle, and it is on the basis of his theory of surplus value that he built the superstructure of his analysis of economic development. According to Marx, it is surplus value that lead to capital accumulation. The capitalist's main motive is to increase the surplus value, which goes to swell his profits. The difference between the value of total output and the supply price of labor represents the surplus value, which is expropriated by the capitalists who are the owners of non-human instruments of for production, capital, equipment, and land. It is the ownership to these instruments of production that enable the capitalists to extract surplus value from labor by forcing them to work longer hours and receive subsistence wage, and thus grab a this opportunity this opportunately large slice of the national cake for themselves. The theory of surplus value thus implies that there is an antagonism between the share of wages and profits. More profits are clearly at the expenses of workers since their magnitude is determined directly by the magnitude of surplus value that capitalist extracts from labor. In the words of Peterson, the notion of surplus value is crucial to the Marxian theory of economic development. Surplus value is the source of all profits, and thus the amount of surplus value that can be expropriated by the capitalistic class will determine the relative share of profit in the income total. Criticism of the Marxian theory: surplus value is unrealistic. In increasing employment, technological progress is helpful. Falling tendency of profits not correct. Marx could not understand flexibility in capitalism, static analysis, variable and constant capital. According to Marx, capital is an constant capital and variable capital invested in stock of raw materials or equipment which directly enhance the productivity of labor called as constant capital, while the capital devoted to the purchase of labor power in the form of wages or direct subsistence called as variables. Capital V surplus value is denoted by A so the total value of products equal to C plus V plus S. Marx establishes certain relationship between C, V, and S. The ratio of constant capital to total capital C by C plus V is termed as organic composition of capital. The ratio of surplus value S to the variable capital V has been termed the rate of exploitation by Marx. Rate of exploitation equal to S by V. Schumpeterian theory. In stationary state, Schumpeter assumes a perfectly competitive equilibrium, no profits, no interest rates, no saving, no investment, and involuntary unemployment. This equilibrium is characterized by what Schumpeter terms the circular flow, which continue to repeat itself in the same manner year after year. In the circular flow, the same products are produced every year in the same manner. For every supply, there awaits somewhere in the economic system a responding demand. For every demand, the corresponding supply. In other words, all economic activities are repetitive in timeless economy. According to Schumpeter, the circular flow is a stream that is fed from the continually flowing springs of labor, power, and land, and flows in every economic period into the reservoir which we can income in order to be transformed into the satisfaction of wants. According to the Schumpeter, he believes in the existence of the contraleaf long wave of our upswings and downswings in economic activity. Each long wave upswing is brought about by innovations in the methods of production, new forms of business organization, new sources of supply or new raw materials and intermediate product and new markets. Thus, there is abundance of goods available for the masses once the upswing ends. The long wave downswings being the painful process of readjustment to the point of previous neighborhood of equilibrium starts. Ultimately, the natural forces of recovery brings about a revival. ওয়েক্স হচ্ছে গিয়ে টাইম গ্রোথ সাইকেল অর ইনকাম ওয়াই প্রাইমারি ওয়েভ প্রসপেরিটি রিসেশন ডিপ্রেশন রিভাইভাল or secondary wave equilibrium path. E. Once again, equilibrium is restored. The some enterprising entrepreneurs bring with a new set of innovations. Others follow, and a new boom begins. Schumpeter describes this process of capitalist development as one of the creative destruction, wherein the old economic structures of society are being continually destroyed and the new structure are being continually created in their place. Schumpeter's critical process of economic development is illustrated in figure where the secondary wave is imposed on the primary wave of innovation. Criticism of Schumpeterian theory. Schumpeter's analysis of the process of the transition from capitalism to socialism is not true. Schumpeter's hyped bank credit in his theory. The downwings and the upswings are not essential for economic development. Economic development also depend on many economists and social changes, not only on innovations. According to Schumpeter, the cyclical changes are due to innovations, which is also wrong contention. Fairness theory, an article entitled A Theory of Economic Development analyzes the transition process through which an underdeveloped economy hopes to move from a condition of or stagnation to one of self-sustained growth by John Fay and Gustav Reines. This theory relates to an underdeveloped labor surplus and resources poor country in which the vast majority of the population doing agricultural activity is experiencing a widespread unemployment and high rate of population growth. This agrarian economy is stagnant. Traditionally, people are engaged in agricultural pursuits, but these are also non-agricultural pursuits which are characterized by a modest use of capital. And active and dynamic industrial sector also exists. Development is realistic. Development is reallocation of surplus agricultural workers whose contribution to output is zero or negligible to the industrial sector, where they become productive at a wage equal to the institutional wage in agricultural sector. Assumptions of the Fairness theory. Fay and Reynes, while presenting the theory of economic development, made the following assumptions. The dualistic economy divided into a traditional and stagnant agricultural sector and active industrial sector. The output is a function of land and labor alone in the agricultural sector. No accumulation of capital in agriculture except in the form of land reclamation. Agricultural sector has the characteristics of constant returns to scale with labor as a variable factor. It is assumed that the marginal productivity of labor becomes zero at some point if population exceeds the quantity at which marginal productivity of labor becomes zero. Labor can be transferred to the industrial sector without loss in agriculture output. In the industrial sector, output is a function of capital and labor alone. Land has no role as a factor of production. Population growth is an exogenous phenomenon. In the industrial sector, real wage remained fixed and equal to the initial level of real income. In the agricultural sector, they termed it as the institutional wage. Workers in either sector consume agricultural products only. Criticism of variance theory. The theory begins with the assumption of fixed supply of land during the process of development, but in the long run, the amount of land is not fixed. There is no empirical evidence to support the assumptions of a constant institutional wage which is above the marginal productivity during phase 1 and 2 of the development process. In fact, the labor surplus underdeveloped countries wages paid to the workers are much below their marginal productivity of labor. In the first two phases, the theory assumes that the institutional wage remains constant. This is highly unrealistic because with a slight rise in agricultural productivity, farm wages also tend to rise. This theory took the assumptions of a closed economy where foreign trade does not exist, but this assumption is unrealistic because underdeveloped countries are not closed but open economies which import agricultural commodities when shortages are discovered. W. Rostow theory. One of the key thinkers in 13th century development studies was W. Rostow, an American economist and government official. Rostow penned his classic stages of economic growth in 1960s, which presented five steps through which all countries must pass to become developed. The model asserted that all countries exist somewhere on this linear spectrum and climb upward through each stages in the development process. These stages are traditional society. First stage is characterized by a subsistent agricultural based economy with intensive labor and low levels of trending and population that does not have a scientific perspective on the world and technology precondition to take off. In the second stage, a society begins to develop manufacturing and a more national, international as opposed to regional outlook. Takeoff. Rostow describes this stage as a short period of intensive growth in which the industrialization begin to occur and workers and institutions become concentrated around a new industry. Drive to maturity. This stage takes place over a long period of time as standards of living rise, the use of technology increases, and the national economy grows and diversifies. Age of high mass consumption. At the time of writing, Rostow believes that Western countries, most notably the United States, occupied this last developed stage. Here, a country's economy flourishes in a capitalist system characterized by mass production and consumerism. Criticism of Rostow's theory. There are many criticisms of this model. While Rostow illustrates faith in a capitalist system, scholars have criticized his bias towards a Western model as the only path towards development. Rostow lays out five succinct steps towards development, and critics have cited that all countries do not develop in such a linear fashion. Some skip steps or take defined paths. Rostow's theory can be classified as top down on one that emphasizes a trickle down modernization effect from urban industry and Western influence to develop a country as a whole. Later theories have challenged this approach, emphasizing a bottom up development paradigm. Big Push theory. The Big Push theory was postulated by Professor Paul N. Roger Elian Rodan in 1943. According to Big Push theory, a large comprehensive program is required in the form of a high minimum amount of investment to overcome the obstacles to development in developing country and to launch it on the way to growth. According to the belief of Roger Leon Rodan, that isolated small efforts will not make a sustaining impact on economic growth. To quote him, launching a country into self-sustaining growth in is a little like getting an aeroplane off the ground. There is a critical ground speed which must be passed before the craft can become airborne. Proceeding bit by bit will not add up in its efforts to the sum total of the single bytes. If the process of development is to be initiated in, it means that a big push in investment has been initiated. Rodin's theory is based on four kinds of indivisibilities as follows: indivisibility in the production function, indivisibility of demand, indivisibility in the supply of savings, psychological indivisibilities. These four indivisibilities are required for a successful development of policy. A big push or a minimum quantum of investment is required to overcome the obstacles to development in underdeveloped countries. Criticisms of the theory. The big push theory has been criticized mainly on the basis that the theory creates more problems that it solves. La Mayant has argued that this theory emphasizes the requirement for big efforts and large quantum of investment, but it ignores the problem of shortage in underdeveloped countries. There is less availability of dynamic entrepreneurs, skilled laborers, domestic capital, etc. The variable could originate problems in the implementation of big push programs. He Alice has raised that theory ignores the shortage of savings and risk involved in the investment. One of the assumptions of the theory is that simultaneous development would create indivisibilities or external economies in the form of training and skilled labor in the long run, but there could be a possibility that each firm might pay high wages for training and skilled labor and hence create external diseconomies for each other. Perhaps the possibility of external diseconomies has not been visualized. Jacob Wiener has raised the point that indivisibilities or external economies generally result in reducing the cost rather than expanding the output. Technical progress. There are several types of technical progress. These technical progress have mostly to do with the capital labor intensity and by implication on relative shares of capital and labor in the total product. This has repercussion on the remuneration of capital and labor, on the wage rate and rental of capital. Hicks' classification of technical change. Sir John Hicks, in his book The Theory of Wages, published in 1932, postulated a classification of technical changes. Hicks looked at technical progress in terms of the effects of technical change on the ratio of marginal product of capital to that of labor. If ratio increases after the technical, according to Hicks, it is to be called labor saving. If the ratio remains same, it is neutral, and if the ratio falls, it is called capital saving. Herod's technical progress. Sir Roy Herod also came forward for the classification of technical progress, which was defined from Hicks' classification. Herod's classification first released in an article in 1937, but extended edition of a book published in 1948. He explained a neutral technical change where the capital output or capital coefficient does not change in the presence of a constant interest rate. Broadly, he suggested that if when the interest rate is constant, the distribution of the total national product between capital and labor stays constant, then it will be called as neutral technical progress. In 1938, Mrs. John Robinson gave a geometric proof that Herod neutral technical progress is exactly in equivalent to labor augmenting technical progress. In other sense, if technical progress is Herod neutral and is proceeding at a constant rate, then the aggregate production function will be as a y equal to f k z t l. So dz t d oblique dt z t equal to u, with hence the Hicks neutral and Herod neutral are the two forms of neutrality are equivalent. Disembodied technical growth. M. Ambro Ambrowitz wrote papers during 1956, followed by J.W. Kendrick and R.M. Solo to measure the contribution of technical change to economic growth. The treated technical change as disembodied. This type of growth is purely organizational, which permits more output to be produced from unchanged input without any new investment. It refers to any kind of shift in the production function that levels balance between capital and labor undistributed in the long run. The production function for such technical growth is written as Q equal to F K L T, where Q equal to output, L equal to labor input, K equal to capital input, or D equal to technical change. Embodied technical growth. Solo modified the residual approach himself based on disembodied technical change, wherein capital stock is regarded as homogeneous and technical change floats down from the outside. According to AFH Han and RCO Matthews, in this model, new capital accumulation is regarded as the vehicle of technical progress. Technical progress increases the productivity of machines by built in any period compared with machines built in previous period, but it does not increase productivity of machines already in existence. This model is based on the following assumptions. Capital stock consists of machines of defined vintages or built at defined dates. New machines are more productive than old ones. Technical change affects only new machines. Technical change proceeds at some given proportional rate. Endogenous growth theory. A technical change is models and as endogenous in the sense that it is affected by economic, behavioral, and institutional variables. Technological change is specially affected by changes in relative input prices and their level, of which the price of labor is particularly important. Lucas suggested that technical progress is not exogenous but endogenous. In addition, Lucas emphasized the role of human capital as a factor of economic growth. Such growth is written as DINLT by DQ equal to constant DLK by DQ equal to constant H, where a constant Q equal to 0, L equal to H, and D equal to rise of unskilled labor. According to Lucas, people spend to increase for their skills only when all the workers are unskilled. If we use a Cobb-Douglas production function, it can be viewed as capital and augmenting or labor saving. It is written as y equal to AENT K infinity L I minus D, where y equal to GDP or A equal to technology condition of society, K equal to human capital accumulation, L equal to unskilled working class, E and T equal to exogenous rate in time T. As the ratio of capital and labor increases, the marginal capital of capital will decrease and economy will stabilize back. Criticism of the endogenous growth model. Endogenous growth theory admits that technology does not explain by itself the majority of growth. Endogenous growth theory has a small part of the contribution to growth. Endogenous growth theory does not feature technological change. It is observed that total factor productivity growth is partly as a result of measurement of inputs. In this, technological progress is in fact capital depending.